Hi, I'm Taz from Taslima Maya Art. Welcome to my channel. And today we're going to be painting a beautiful rose in watercolour as a step-by-step tutorial for beginners. This week on the Creative Art Collective we have the lovely Kat's Fluid Art Creations up after me, and up after her is the talented Sheldon Briscoe of Shalrock Art. Do stay with us. And my friends, we have a big announcement to make. The Creative Art Collective are now going to switch. So we're going to move over to a Saturday at 5 PM EST, 2 PM PST, 4 PM CST and 9 AM Sydney. And for all our wonderful UK and EU viewers, we'll be on at 10 PM and 11 PM respectively on Saturdays. We hope that is a convenient time for you too, and hopefully see you on a live chat next Saturday. And a heartfelt thank you goes out to all my Patreon and channel members for supporting my channel. You really make a difference. So let's go paint a rose in watercolour. So for this painting you need a few essential items, starting with some good quality watercolour paper, and this is an A5 sketch pad. You'll also need a mixing palette, a number of brushes, from fine detail brushes to a round or mop brush. You'll also need a watercolour paint set, and this can either be professional or student grade. And finally some clean fresh water. I'm happy to tell you that this rose is actually a request from one of my wonderful viewers called Patricia. She left a comment on my previous video with watercolour, which was a hibiscus, so do check that out if you haven't seen it. I do hope you enjoyed the creation of this rose, Patricia. So I start off with a hard 4H pencil, and I very lightly outline sketch the rose that I'm going to paint. And this is a really easy way to get started for complete beginners who are a bit anxious about putting paintbrush to paper without some guidance. So you can see my outline here. It's a very simple outline. I'm going to now erase this outline so it's extremely faint. What I don't want to do is create a painting with watercolour and be able to see the pencil outline. I tend to tape down and secure my watercolour paper onto some card to make it more easily portable. This stops the paper from moving around when you're painting and gives you ease of access. There we go, all secured to stop any warping. Next I take my soft putty eraser and use that to erase the lines that I've just put down. I'm careful not to damage my watercolour paper. This is why a putty eraser is ideal. Given the malleable nature of a putty eraser, it doesn't damage the surface on my paper. And now with the prep done, we're ready to begin painting. So as it's a beginner's tutorial, I'm going to keep the palette really simple. I'm choosing warmer colours like reds, oranges, pinks and maroon for the petals. I'm just wetting all of my pans with some water and adding some onto my palette. So you can see my paints are being thinned down, so I can use them almost as a wash, and they've got different intensities and hues. And I'm going to just alternate between the colours depending on where on the rose petal I'm placing these colours. So I'm going to go from light to the darker pigments. My first step is to use the most darkest colours I have on my palette, which is almost a maroon dark red colour, and I'm going to place that right in the centre of my rose. So my rose is going to be dark at the centre, and the petals on the outside of the rose are going to get lighter and lighter to almost an orange colour. And I'm using a number of different colours here, ranging from reds to oranges, because I want a gradient effect in my rose, which makes it look much more 3D and really wants to burst out from that paper at you, almost as if it's real. So what you'll see is in each of the segments of the petal in the centre, I'm adding darker colours on the ends and a lighter colour in the middle, and then blending them as much as possible. And this is really easy to do with watercolours because you can just get a wet brush and paint in with water in the segments, and then you can drop your colours in on each end, so the darker colours on the end and then the lighter colour in the middle, and wash your brush in between each colour as well. That really helps, and it just blends itself because the colours beautifully run into each other and emerge, and it's such a really ethereal thing. It's beautiful. And again, this method, because of the pencil outlines, which I can see, but you probably can't pick up on the camera, I can see them in the light when I kind of go close to the painting. I can see where I need to drop my colours and my water. This makes it really easy for anyone who's starting out because you know where to paint, and it's a very controlled method of painting. Another thing to note is that obviously the petals are smaller in the centre, they get wider and wider as they go out. So I'm using a very fine tipped brush to do the centre, and I will switch to a bigger brush to do the petals on the outside. I'm using a specific kind of watercolour paper dedicated for watercolour that can take the amount of water you put on it within reason. Ideally, watercolour paper should be 100% cotton for the best results. Do keep in mind that roses are not symmetrical. They have a lovely organic feel, so don't worry about perfection or perfect spacing between your petals if you're doing this freehand without a sketch. Remember to keep the outer petals wide and more open, while the ones closer to the centre are tighter. This will give your rose a natural blooming look if you're doing this freehand. And if you are doing this freehand, remember that no two roses are the same, so embrace the irregularities in your painting. If any lines feel too sharp or angular, you can soften them with a bit more colour on your paintbrush and some water. You can see that I'm adding a little bit of orange into the red there, and alternating between putting it on the ends of the petals or the centre, as opposed to with the red. Now remember to take a step back at points and look at your outline and the painting itself. You should have a central spiral and several layers of petals. At this point you can choose to refine the shapes a bit or continue with using the guidance of the pencil lines. Another tip for beginners is to keep a scrap piece of paper on which you can test the colours and see how they blend with another adjacent colour. This will help you get the right consistency of paint, remember, because for watercolour you want your colours to be fluid and not too thick or too runny or watery. And also remember, watercolour is all about building up layers from light to dark, so keep your washes soft and transparent and layer them. You can see me building depth by adding some darker colours once the lighter colours are semi-dry, so I'm adding wet onto damp at times. And also wet onto dry. Darker colours help create shadows and give your rose more dimension. Remember to use a light touch and let the watercolours blend naturally, don't overwork it. And another tip for beginners is that you can go in with a damp brush to lift some colour from the petals to reveal lighter areas if you wish. I'm beginning to realise more and more how watercolour is actually such a therapeutic activity and really helps with mental health, relaxation, and really just being in the moment. I hope it gives you as much joy as it's giving me. As your rose dries, you can go back and add a few final details. You can deepen the shadows around the petal edges to make the rose look more three-dimensional, for instance. So now, my friends, it's time to do the leaves. I start by adding a light soft wash of yellowy green as a base or a wash, and then I add darker tones near the veins for some texture. Don't forget to leave some light areas to give the leaves a fresh, natural feel. If you have the granulating effect, you can build texture into your leaves as well, which is really nice depending on which paints you're using. And then it's just a case of repeating this for each of the other leaves around the rose. And we can see from this that it actually really pulls together the whole painting. The leaves surrounding the rose really contrast in a stunning way. I'd like to say a big thank you to all my viewers for supporting my channel with your likes, your comments and sharing it with your friends. I do hope you're enjoying this beginner's watercolour class. If you have a request for a particular bird or flower or anything for me to do in watercolour, please do leave a comment down below and let me know what that is. I do love getting requests like I did from the lovely Patricia. And there you have it, your very own watercolour rose, ready to be turned into a full painting or used as a beautiful decorative piece. I do hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that it inspired you to experiment with watercolour. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tutorials like this one. Also, I'd love to see your creations, so feel free to share them with me on social media. You can do this by joining my private Facebook group called Acrylic Pouring and Mixed Media by Taslima Maya Art. The link is in the description box below. And be sure to check out my other tutorial videos for watercolour on my channel. Happy painting, and I'll see you in the next video. And have a wonderful week ahead.